What I'm going to be talking about in this video is how you might feel during the first few days after the death. What people don't realise sometimes is that there is quite a large element of shock after a death, even if it's been expected. And that really shows itself in lots of different physical ways. You might find that you're crying a lot, or you're not crying at all. Sometimes people don't, and that's absolutely normal. You might feel that you can't believe what has actually happened, even if you were expecting it. You might find that you are not able to eat, that your stomach is upset, or you might find yourself overeating a bit with the anxiety of it. And that also is something that can be quite difficult at the time after a death, and that is the level of anxiety people feel. It can be even sometimes verging on panic, hopefully not, but it is normal to feel anxious after a death. There is a lot to do, and there's an awful lot to take in. You might find yourself actually not feeling that much. People talk about feeling numb, and sometimes I think people can feel quite frozen as well. They're sort of like a deer in the headlights. They don't know what to do, and there is a lot to do, but at the same time it's quite important to think about what you actually need yourself. You might not be sleeping very well. You might have early morning waking, or you can't get to sleep. You might have disturbed sleep in the middle of the night, and that really can impact on your day quite badly, because at a time when you really need rest, you might not be getting that much. You might feel that you're not functioning that well, and again, that is an element of the shock that people feel. And it's not that we know we're in shock, it's rather more that when it starts to dissipate after about 8 weeks, you look back and you think, gosh, I wasn't really myself. But I like to think of the shock as a very, very useful way that nature protects us from the worst of the feelings, because it sort of cushions us. Somebody once described it as feeling as though they were walking in a cloud for some weeks after a death, and it protects you, and it's there for a purpose. So it's worth realizing that and respecting that, and it can be really helpful. Some people talk about being on automatic, because if you've got children to get up and feed and get to school, you know, you have to do it because life goes on, but you feel as if it's not really you, somebody else is almost doing it. But it is, again, nature's way of pushing us through the hardest moments, and it is useful, and later on you will feel more like yourself. I think when people die and, you know, there's that final moment and they are gone, we can't quite believe it, and I think of it as something similar to an amputation. So when a limb is taken away, you do actually have phantom pains because you expect that limb to be there. And the same happens when people we really love die, because actually we are expecting them to come back, and we expect the door to open, we expect the phone to ring or the text to come in, we expect them to be in the house, and that's very hard, but it's very natural to feel that way. And the other feeling that can be quite difficult is sort of remembering what's happened at the end. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in another video. So the sort of physical feelings you might have might be that your body feels very heavy, like you're walking through mud. You might have stomach problems, you might have headaches. That's quite stress-related physical feelings. Again, I said about disturbed sleep and eating patterns, and sometimes people even feel physical pain, because grief actually is very, very painful. It does hurt our heart and it does affect our bodies. So what can you do to help yourself? How can you care for yourself? Well, the biggest thing I think is to rest, because grief is really, really tiring, like in your bones, fatiguing. So if you can just lay down on the sofa or the bed and have a nap or just rest, that's really going to help you. Remember to try and eat even when you don't feel like it, because you need to keep your energy up for what you need to do in the coming weeks. And do ask for support, and do take it when it's offered. It's very easy to isolate yourself, especially in early grief. And people do want to help you. So I would recommend, if somebody says they'll pick up your kids or get you some groceries, or can they bring you a meal, just say yes. It'll really help. And lastly, I just want to say that you are okay, and this is going to be all right in the end. And it's hard to hold on to that at the beginning, but the way you are feeling is natural and normal, and that is so important to realize that each person has their own set of feelings and their own landscape for grief. There is no right or wrong.